Hey y'all, welcome back. Another week, another episode. Idle, I'll Talk If You'll Listen, episode 69, 69. And we're on a roll. We're on a roll. We're right on the gravy train here, and I feel like I'm getting my momentum back. I like that. I got my swagger back. But it's so funny how, I don't want to say contagious, but just like how easy things spread from one area of your life to another. Productivity really starts to pick up pace in one area of your life. It'll kind of overflow into another area of your life. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that just to catch up with y'all. I kind of look at this podcast as not just an avenue or opportunity for me to discuss my thoughts or feelings or whatever. I also look at it as an opportunity to catch up with you all. So even if I don't get to see you or talk to you often, you at least know what's going on in my life. So let's catch up. Let's catch up really quickly. So with things starting to open back up as far as COVID is concerned, and with me being fully vaccinated, I have taken the opportunity to kind of get out a little bit more. And I was telling y'all on the last episode about how I went into the city, which is something I wouldn't have done if it wasn't for the vaccine. And today I went out with a friend, and we ended up hanging out with another friend and had some really deep conversations that I'm really grateful for. A lot of those topics were surrounding topics that I've visited so much on this show, but I just love them. I can't get enough of just talking about like societal norms or religion or just society and its habits in general. Those are things that I'll feel like always talking. I'll always want to talk about those topics. And who knows, maybe as the show starts to expand a little bit and grow, I'll get more opportunities to talk about different philosophies and different things and have some productive discussions and or debates with people as they come on. The problem, though, is it's really difficult to try to get people who disagree on the show. I think a lot of them they're just not prepared for the confrontation, or, they can have a little back and forth with somebody on Twitter, but they don't know how to kind of sit down and have a civil argument or discussion. It doesn't even have to be an argument. It could just be a civil discussion. And don't get me started on Twitter. It's like the most toxic place in human history. It's just like ridiculous. And i.e. it's populated with humans, so there you go. But yeah, I went to go hang out today. I feel like I did something on Saturday too. Where did I go on Saturday? I did something on Saturday that for whatever reason I can't figure out right now. Like, my short-term memory is so shot, y'all. It's like I can remember things, like I can remember a lot when it comes to work. Like, my short-term memory is so bogus. Oh, what did I do on Saturday? I went to go hang out with my buddy Chris. So I went to go hang out with my buddy Chris and my buddy Mike. And I'm hoping, well, Chris knows me well enough to not take this the wrong way, because I know he listens to the show. But just for the sake of saying that, I hope he or no one else with kids takes it the wrong way. But it's one of those things where everything ain't for everybody. And home ownership isn't for everyone. Kids isn't for everyone. Marriage isn't for everyone. College, religion, a career, entrepreneurship, all these different things aren't for everyone. And I know a lot of these things, we talked about societal norms last episode. I know a lot of these things are pushed onto us, like, hey, you have to do this, otherwise you're a failure, or you're not successful, or you're worthless, because your value is put into this idea. And it's really difficult to fight an idea, right? An idea isn't breathing, it isn't organic, it isn't an actual person. An idea is exactly that. It's an idea, it's a thought, it's a philosophy. And sometimes it's going to be really tough to combat that, especially when you've been taught, shown, and told your whole life that it is normal. So not everything isn't for everybody, but one of the best things that I feel like could ever happen to somebody is when their decision or belief or faith is tested and then reaffirmed. Everybody has a moment where they make a decision, and then after a certain amount of time, they start to question that decision. They start to think to themselves, oh man, did I make the right decision? Should I have gone to college? Should I have enlisted in the military? Should I started my own business? There's all these different things. Or, hey, I shouldn't have done this thing, right? And then something will happen and you go, you know what? I'm so glad I made that decision. And this is one of those topics where I have to keep saying that two things can be true. I'm not a huge fan of kids, like as an idea. I don't like kids. I don't like the things you kind of got to deal with kids. I don't like their attention spans. I don't like how much stress and energy they take to watch. I don't like how bad they can be. One of my biggest pet peeves is to watch a bad behind kid run all over the place and their parent is either too exhausted, feels helpless, or just doesn't care. And the kid is just bouncing all over the grocery store, all over the playground, pushing kids, hitting kids. And the instant you take issue with it, the parent is like, well, who the heck are you? And it's this big old thing. But there are a lot of things that I know are great about kids. There are a lot of things that I'm sure are wonderful about kids. Like you can't, I said this to Chris over the weekend. I said, if you could take a mother or father's joy in watching their child graduate from high school or college or wherever and bottle that joy and sell it, you'd be a billionaire. You'd be a trillionaire. And I mean that. There are a lot of things that I feel proud when I see people that I've mentored or I've watched grow up or I went to school with their parents and I see them being praised online on social media. That's awesome. You know, that's really, really great. So there's good and there's bad, but I don't want kids. I don't ever want kids. I don't plan on having kids. And sometimes you got to have an experience, which I'd had recently when I went to Chris's, where you kind of just see like, yep, I'm so glad I made that decision. I'm so glad. Now, the difficult part about having this discussion, I'm about to get too deep for the intro for y'all, as I do. Here's the problem with having a discussion like this. First things first, it's not the popular discussion to have. Like I just said, kids are the societal norm, and that's what a lot of people's goals are. They don't really know why. Some people genuinely do want kids and don't know why. Some people genuinely want kids and do know why. But I honestly would say that the majority of people who want kids, or at least say they want kids, really don't. But they've just been, again, guided that way. Like, hey, you need to have kids. You need to find a man or a woman to settle down with. You need to get into a relationship. You need to get a house. You need to get married. And you need to have kids. Like, that's the status quo. And people who resent that they felt forced into a certain situation and it wasn't entirely their decision, they resent that fact. So when you try to have a discussion like this, they automatically feel like they have to defend the idea of their decision to have kids or their decision to, make any other decision. They feel like, okay, I am now the spokesperson for this idea and I have to defend it. Because if I don't, then that means I made a silly decision. And it gets really, really tough. A lot of people can't compartmentalize and just take themselves away from the situation. Like, hey, I'm a parent. I love or I hate my kids, regardless of the fact of how you feel. Because say what you want. There are people out there who regret having kids. There are people out there who enjoy or love the fact that they did have kids. They are proud of that decision. But those people are really tough to have an objective discussion with, because it's like, for the people who resent the fact that they have kids, they feel like, again, they have to defend their stance. And for the people who are proud and happy of the fact that they have kids, they feel like they have to, it's the wonderful, it's the best thing I ever did, I'm so happy. And two things can be true. Yes, watching your kid crawl and walk and run and ride a bike for the first time is amazing. You can't emulate that. That's amazing. And yes, maybe when every time you look at your kid, you think about all the things you can't do because you were forced into having a kid, whether it was not planned or whether it was planned. But your parents said you had to have a kid, or your religion said you had to have a kid, or your partner forced you into having a kid because they wanted to have a kid. Now you feel like, okay, I kind of have to defend this thing. So it's really difficult to have, and I think this is why a lot of the times people who don't have kids and people who do have kids kind of flock together, right? The people who don't have kids can kind of talk about why they don't want kids and how awesome it is to not have kids and all these things, and their ideas in general won't ever really be challenged because you're talking to somebody who feels the same way you do. But then the people with kids, parents, they're talking to other parents, and same thing. Like, you combine in certain things, certain parents who maybe didn't have planned pregnancies or whatever the case may be can bond over different areas. But in general, most parents will, again, they won't challenge the idea of like, hey, this shouldn't have happened. Now, it does happen, I'm sure, but not as often. And it's really difficult, just like with anything else in life. It is really difficult to have an objective philosophical discussion with somebody who made a different decision or has a different opinion on something than you do. I think the world, and when I say the world, I mean humans, biggest deficit, the thing that we're lacking the most is empathy and in some cases sympathy. And I think until we can get on the empathy train and we can start to truly understand and feel, or at least want to understand and feel, why somebody made a certain decision, why you decided to move to Colorado, why you decided to go into the NBA right out of high school, why you decided to travel abroad and study, why you decided to not get married, why you decided to get in real estate. There's so many different things that people out here do. And I feel like there's so many universal normal things that you can kind of come out and just say and people just instantly accept. No one really challenges. But I think in all aspects, you really need to challenge the way you think and maybe challenge your decision. Because like I said, I think a lot of people, and you find this most with religion, but a lot of people, I think they have this fear of, if I challenge my decision, if I challenge my faith, if I challenge my belief system, then that means that potentially I could be living a lie, and or it means I'm weak-minded. It means I don't have a lot of conviction. It means that my resolve has never been tested. And I'm not a good Christian, or I'm not a good Muslim, or I'm not a good Buddhist, or whatever the case may be, because I'm questioning these things. Well, no, you should question your decision, because the opposite is true too. You can come out of it, like I mentioned at the top of the show, very happy and pleased with your decision. You know what? I'm glad I moved here. You know what? I'm glad I took that job offer. I'm glad I decided to have kids. You know what? I'm glad I purchased this car. And you could feel much more confident and sure in your decision. It's not always the opposite. Like, if you question the decision that you made, you'll realize that it was a bonehead move and that you're dumb and you're the worst human being ever. That's not always the outcome. So I encourage everybody, whether you decided to start a small business, you decided to get an extra piece of furniture, you decided to move to another part of the world, you decided to take an extra 4 years of college, whatever the case may be, question your decision, think about your decision, and ask yourself, did I make a good one? And if you didn't, it's not the end of the world in most cases, but I think we really need to take a step back and think about stuff like that. So I talked a little bit about that today. Obviously, I talked a little bit about that last episode too. But that's just kind of on my mind right now. That's just what I'm thinking about. And I'm really, really happy to have these open discussions with anybody. I love every now and again when I go on Instagram Live and I get a lot of you guys and girls feedback about whatever topic of discussion. And I think I need to be more consistent with that and bring it back. It's just really, really difficult to do that because there's so many other things going on. And I don't want to set anybody up for disappointment. I think having the freedom and flexibility of just doing it sporadically, one, makes it more special because it feels a little bit more exclusive. Like, oh, snap, there's this random thing that doesn't happen often going on. But then another part of it is like, if I commit to a schedule and I know something happens, and let's be honest, as fun as it would be, it wouldn't be a priority. And it has a lot of long-term benefits, but no short-term benefits, I'm going to prioritize something over that. If I have a Masonic event or meeting, if I have to work late, if I have to do something else, heck, even if I want to just relax because I had a stressful day, kick back, have a beer, play some Mortal Kombat, I am going to put that over the Instagram video or Twitter video, whatever the case may be. So I'm not going to commit to like a schedule to that, but just keep an eye out just in case I decide to. I really like hearing from y'all too, because a lot of y'all get really passionate and fiery about some of the topics. And it's great to see somebody passionate about anything, let alone a topic that I'm passionate about. Even if it's on the other side of the opinion, it's really fun to watch that. What else is going on with me? Let's see. I started reading some more leadership articles, and I started reading a book. I wanted to talk to y'all about this too. So, for those of you who have known me for quite some time, at my previous job, I used to work at another job and another employer, and I was all about self-help. I was surrounded by people who were really big into self-development and in leadership and mentorship, and that rubbed me in the right way because I got a ton of books, audio books, physical books, and practice on accountability and read up on leadership and wanted to understand and dissect mentorship. And it made me a better leader. And I was able to pass on a lot of the traits and skills that I've learned to other people. And there's nothing like teaching somebody who wants to be taught. That's like the best thing in the world. I know for all of my coaches out there who have, players that really want to hone and perfect their craft, it just lights a fire in you like nobody's business. You get really excited about it. But what I didn't realize is when you're in an environment or a culture full of people who want to do that, you can really pretty much just throw a dart and the first person it hits is going to be a person you can take under your wing. Now, there were some knuckleheads, but the majority of people there wanted to learn, wanted to grow. And you find that leaders facilitate the environment for leaders. Leaders make leaders. And you really find out that leading and leadership is all about serving anyway. You're really serving the people underneath you because you're equipping them with the tools that they need to serve in the future. So leadership is really, really cool like that. But I started reading a lot of books and things about time management, a few other things. And then I transitioned into my current job and I realized like a lot of those things weren't valued. So it kind of got to the point where I fell off and I kind of let the environment dictate my passion, and which is a huge no-no. I'm a little disappointed to even admit that, or ashamed, I should say, to even admit that. But I stopped reading these books. I stopped reading these self-help books. I stopped reading these leadership books. I stopped reading these time management books. Because a part of me was like, for what? Recently, though, and a lot of it has to do with my learning and development training, trying to get this APTD certification. I was like, you know what? I really need to start investing in myself because I won't be at this place forever. Or, who knows what could happen. And everything that I pour into myself is going to go with me everywhere. You can take anything away from me. You can't take my education away from me. So, you know what? Let me kind of go back. And one of my biggest heals right now is procrastination. And I started to look into a little bit. Like, I watched this TED Talk. I don't know anything about the person who did the TED Talk. I wish I could remember. But I watched this TED Talk about procrastination. And just to really quickly summarize the TED Talk, it basically just said the reason we procrastinate or people who procrastinate, the reason they do is the fear of doing it right, or the fear of having it meet your standards, the fear of doing it perfect, the fear of pleasing everybody. And you kind of keep putting it off, and it manifests itself in other things. Like, you know what? I want to dedicate all my time to this project. So let me knock out these other little baby projects so that way I can dedicate my full time to the project. Or you know what, I'm really, really tired right now. I want to start this project with a fresh mind and I want to be able to knock it out. So I'm going to go to sleep and I'm going to get up early tomorrow and I'm going to do the project. What we're really doing is basically saying we're afraid of doing it because we might not do it to the best. We may not put out the best quality of work that we feel that we should be putting out or that we think people think we should be putting out. So we kind of put it off and put it off. And the only reason we end up doing it, which oftentimes happens at the very last minute, is that the fear of missing a deadline or the fear of not doing it is bigger than the fear of getting it right. And that really hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, whoa, that's huge. And it makes sense. Fear is very, very powerful. We're going to be talking about fear a little bit later on when it comes to this whole vaccination thing. But fear is very, very powerful. Fear is so huge. The only thing that can really there are only two things that can conquer fear: education and fear. Fear is like, I'm trying to think what it was. Was it dragon? The dragon type? For all my Pokemon players out there, if you can just think of it, fear is like the I want to say dragon type, or maybe it's the bug type, a Pokemon where its weakness is the same type that it is. Fear's weakness is fear. And that procrastination story or example or reference is proof of that. You are afraid of something more. But think about it. You might be afraid of, I don't know, driving on a highway, but you might be more afraid of being late to work. So you're probably going to be freaking out the whole time you're on a highway, but not as much as you would be if you were late for work. So that kind of really hit me. I really internalized that, digested that, thought about that, found that it was true. I thought about different areas, even some current areas at the time, that validated that. And I said, okay, well, let's get back into the self-help mode. Let's get back to the self-development mode. I want to be the best person for the people who are following me, for the people I have the opportunity, the privilege to serve. So I looked up some books on procrastination, and one of the best books, one of the most highly rated books, was this book called Eat That Frog. Now, I love this book so far because it's very simple, it's really easy to understand, and it just makes sense. The way my brain works is I need to rationalize the information that's given to me. Somebody can't just tell me something. I'd like, tell me why. Like, it needs to make sense. And when you put some of these things into practice that you hear about the book, it really kind of like flips a switch for you. It really, really does. So I'm going to tell you guys all about this book, or at least so far, why I got into it and why it makes me so happy right after this break. Hey gang. So Eat That Frog. The surface things that I like about it, like I mentioned before the break, is that it's easy to understand, it's easily digestible, the chapters are very short. But some other surface level things that I like is the title, Eat That Frog. It's very interesting. You kind of look at it and you're like, what? Especially when you hear it's about procrastination. The title, it draws you in, and I like it. And I started kind of implementing this at work, talking about frogs. And basically, the premise is you're replacing the word task or item or objective with frog. And it does something to your subconscious mind when you do that. And there are a lot of good examples. The example that the author uses is no one wants to eat a whole frog. Like, no one wants to do it. The fastest way to do it is just to do it. The longer you stare at the frog that's on your plate as it's croaking and it's slimy and it's moving and it's eating flies, the more you're going to convince yourself not to do it. You're going to find reasons not to eat that frog. You just grab it, you throw it down, swallow it whole if you have to, and then you move on to the next thing. And I really, really like it because it used certain things like big frog, ugly frog, or loud frog, and just, I guess, normal frog, and then you have tadpoles. So it's really, really important that you kind of categorize different things into what's the most important, what's the least important, and what's really not that important. Now, on paper, I always knew that. Okay, obviously, something that's the priority needs to go on top. But I really struggled with why or how to determine how big of a priority something is. And the way it explained it is you got to look at the thing that has the biggest long term or short term consequences, depending on what the task is. So, the best way to explain it is if you got company coming over and you want to clean the house and you make a list of frogs, you got to determine what's your big frog, what's your ugly frog, and what's something like a tadpole or something. So you take a look. Okay, I have a bathroom and I have a kitchen. Okay, well, what is the long term consequence of not cleaning these now and this coming over and people coming over when it's time to have the event? Well, if the kitchen isn't clean and it stinks, it's going to make for an unpleasant environment. Also, there won't be enough plates or silverware or whatever to go around. There also may not be enough space because it could be cramped. Okay, well, the bathroom also needs to get cleaned too because I don't want people to think I'm a slob. And of course, I don't want anything to be unsanitary. Well, both need to get done. So you're going to tell yourself, I'm going to get both of these done. But you think about it, well, people are going to see the kitchen first, unless there's a unlikely scenario where somebody has to use the restroom as soon as they come in. People are going to see the kitchen first. People are going to hang out in the kitchen first. But more importantly, people are either going to be eating in the kitchen or getting their food from the kitchen. So you're going to want that place to be clean. Worst case scenario, if the bathroom isn't clean, people will just talk crap behind your back. And guess what? They're doing that anyway. But that won't necessarily prevent someone from going to the bathroom. And again, this is something that's going to get done anyway. You're still going to do the bathroom. It's not saying you're not going to clean it. But you look at the one with the biggest long-term consequences and you go, oh, okay, great, I get it. So I'm going to knock out the kitchen first. Plus, the kitchen's bigger. Probably makes more sense for me to do the kitchen first before doing the bathroom, right? Or worst case scenario, people won't see the shower or people won't see the tub. So as long as the curtain is drawn or the door is closed, people won't see that. So, hey, if I got area rugs or placemats in the rug, maybe they won't necessarily notice how dirty the floor is. So let me just clean the toilet. Let me just clean the sink. Worst case scenario, I'll clean the bath. I'll give the deep cleaning to the bathroom at a later point in time. So when you start to look at things like that, it really helps you to prioritize things a little bit better. And it's really, really, really dope for me because, like I said, I can make a list in a heartbeat. Say, Tim, give me all the things you got to do today. I can write that list, no problem. I might forget a few things, but in general, I can write a list, no problem. Now, if you ask me what's the most important thing, I would have had to okay, well, this might be the most important thing because X, Y, or Z. But I never really looked at it as the long-term consequences. And I've done that with work. There's a huge project I got to do at work where there's a deadline for a really, really big client. And it basically boils down to, well, hey, what are the consequences if I don't get this done compared to if I don't get this daily task done? So yeah, if I don't get the daily task done, that blows. But my boss will be much more tolerable if that project is positive progress is being made on that project versus that daily task didn't get done. Especially because she knows where my head is at anyway. So that's a little bit of game for y'all. I really encourage y'all to read the Eat That Frog. And I'm actually going to look up the author for y'all right now. Give me just a second. Let's see. Brian Tracy. Brian spelled Brian. Tracy is Tracy. Brian Tracy. It's called Eat That Frog. I'm so glad I found it. Going back to the other thing that I really like about it is it has these exercises. And I did one of them, and I'm super proud of it. So it has these exercises at the end of each chapter. And it says, do these exercises and try to apply them every day. And one of the exercises is, it said to use a year. I did a month because these are some short-term goals. It said, write a list of things that you want to accomplish over the next year. So I did a month, so I'm going to swap out year for a month. So write a list of things you want to accomplish over the next month. And write them in the present tense as if you already did it. So I did this, I have done that, etc., etc. When you do that, it instantly becomes accepted by your subconscious mind. and your subconscious basically goes, "Oh, I did it already." So it makes it that much more obtainable because it's not viewed as this daunting task like I will do this. It's kind of like I did it already. And you're almost kind of like looking into the future because you, granted, now have the power to determine if what you said was a lie or not. It's so weird. It's super spooky because you're like, I worked out for 4 days each week this month. And when you say it that way, okay, now it's on you. It's up to you to determine if that's going to be a lie or not. And for some people, it's as simple as, well, I don't want to lie, so I'm going to do it. For other people, it awakens something in their subconscious. It just makes it happen. It's super dope. I'm so glad that I did it. So I wrote a few things down. I separated into masonry, my personal life, not my personal life, but self-development I put, and work. So one thing that I put down there is I'll do 10 push-ups and 10 sit-ups a day for a month, or I did do this. And if I do miss a day, I'm going to do twice as many. So I'll just do 20 because I know I'm not going to miss 2 days in a row. So I'm really happy about that list, and I'm super excited to have done that. And I'm really excited about the book. The only complaint about the book so far is the volume. Like, the guy's a very soft-spoken person, and I don't know if it was just the recording quality or if it's just audible, but even at max volume, if I'm doing something like even running water, like if I'm washing my face or shaving, I gotta have it like on full blast. Otherwise, I won't really hear it. So it's really, really, really difficult to hear it sometimes. Another challenge is sometimes my mind will start to drift off and I'll start thinking about how to apply the techniques at work or in some other area of my life. And I'll go, oh, snap, I wasn't really listening. And I have to like rewind it a minute or so. But that's a good problem to have if you're constantly thinking about how you can apply these new techniques. So again, if you struggle with procrastination, this is the only book that I have started to read on it so far. But I do encourage Eat That Frog. It's super dope. I like it so far. I think I'm on chapter 4, and I can't wait to finish it. So I'll be giving you all steady updates as I kind of work through it and get through it. And hopefully it'll help me achieve some of my goals. And we'll see where I'm at in 30 days. I think this is the first week in the books. I think I started this list on Tuesday, maybe Monday. So this is the first week pretty much in the books. So I'm 1 week in and I'm really happy. Another one of those things that I wrote down real quick, y'all, before I take a break, is a weight loss goal. So I wanted to lose some weight, and I lost 4 pounds, y'all. I lost 4 pounds. I'm really excited about it. It may not seem like a lot, but it's a bit of a victory. And honestly, I'm more concerned about the look and feel of my body more so than I am how much I weigh. Honestly, before I lost this weight, I was at 162. And that was the heaviest I've ever weighed, I'm pretty sure. I wouldn't mind weighing like 170, 175, but I would want that to be like mostly muscle. I would want very little body fat from that. But this is being 162 was the heaviest I've ever weighed. I was like in the 140s for a really long time. And I don't want to necessarily get back down to that point. I'm hoping I can put on some muscle weight. I know the way my metabolism and my body is naturally. I might just start shedding the weight and get back to the 140s unintentionally. So I'm going to have to find a way to kind of put on the weight and keep it and hopefully maintain it. That's the difficult part. Losing the weight is easy. It's maintaining the weight that you're at. That's the difficult part. So just a little update for y'all. I hope that encourages or inspires somebody who has weight loss goals or health or fitness goals, nutrition goals. Write it down. Write it down. Write it down. An idea that you don't write down is just a dream. A goal that you don't write down is just a dream. It's just a wish. You need to write it down. You need to literally put that idea on paper because that idea literally doesn't exist. It's only in your head. And your words aren't being memorialized. It's just out in the air. The instant you write it down, you put it on a whiteboard, you put it on a piece of paper, you literally make history. You put ink onto paper and you put that goal on paper. So it's so weird. It sounds super corny, but it works. It really, really does. So I encourage you all to do it and find this book and read it. You'll like it. So I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to bring up a topic that's been bugging the crap out of me on the other side of this break. Hey, y'all, I'm back. So there's 2 articles that I want to read for y'all. They're both short. They're both really easy to read. And I'll give you the links as I'm reading them or before I start to read them. But I wanted to talk about this vaccine thing. There's 2 people that have been bugging me recently. One person, so I'll keep them nameless, but they represent 2 groups of people that bug me. So I have a friend on social media who constantly posts that he's not going to get the vaccine. And he posts all this typical, like, the problem is he says a lot of things tongue in cheek. He's a jokester. So a lot of it, you can tell that although he's serious about his stance, some of the stuff that he puts out there may not necessarily be a good representation of how he feels. But it's this thing where he kind of like puts these things out and it kind of almost encourages people. He gets so many likes and views where he's like, hey, I'm not getting the vaccine. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. And how he goes about doing it in a weird way is like encourages or try to convinces people to not get it. And here's my stance on it. At the end of the day, it's your right. It's your body. You can do what you want. I would never tell somebody that they need to put something in their body because I want them to. However, I think there's so much hypocritical stances on why you won't get the vaccine. Now, if you do your research and you talk to doctors and nurses and you go to legitimate websites, you get legitimate books, you look at legitimate studies and surveys and polls, and you see, hey, I don't know, chemical X is in there, and I'm not trying to be a Powerpuff Girl or a rowdy rough boy. I'm not trying to be that. So I'm not taking a vaccine. I know what chemical X is. I did some research. I talked to my main man, Professor Utonium, and yeah, I'm not doing that. Was it Utonium or Plutonium? Utonium. Yeah, Utonium with a U. But anyway, I talked to him. I'm not putting it. Whatever. Now you're making an educated guess or an educated decision, and you're not getting it. But when you're like, I'm just not getting it because I don't know what's in it, I'm not putting that in my body, it gets me really frustrated because how many things on a regular basis do you put into your body and you have no idea what's in it? How many of you look at the ingredients labels or the nutritional facts when you go to buy something and put something in your body? How many of you don't care about high cholesterol or, high sodium intake or sugar intake like diabetes and all these? How many people are walking around overweight or with diabetes but sitting here saying, I'm not trying to get the vaccine? It's crazy to me. It's super crazy to me, which leads me to the second group of people. And this is what I was talking about earlier about fear. So the reason I'm a bit sympathetic with these people is fear is very paralyzing. Fear and anger are the 2 most primitive emotions that you have that can encourage you to do certain things. Whether it be fight or flight, whether it be not wanting to do something, like fear and anger have a hold on your mind in a way that no other emotion does. Maybe love, but that's a different story. But fear, I can understand someone going like, I'm afraid to take it. I don't want to die. I don't want to get sick. I don't want this. I don't want that. And I get that. And that's an irrational thought. So you can't combat an irrational thought with rational information. It'll bounce right off. It won't stick at all. And I get that. It's just like your friend. We all know somebody who's madly in love with somebody. It might not be the best relationship for them. And you're trying to rationalize and give them reasons why you're not. You're coming at them with a rational, logical argument, but they're in an irrational state. So you got to somehow appeal to the irrational behavior. So I sympathize with that. I can understand being afraid. I can understand being fearful of the outcome. I get that. What I don't sympathize with and what I don't like is when you put your faith into people just because you know them or like trust them, and like that's where it stops. This person isn't a doctor, this person isn't a nurse, this person isn't in the scientific or medical field at all. But because you've been playing pool with them for 15 years and you just trust them, from they go, I'm not getting that. You like, oh, well, you ain't getting it, I'm not getting it either. And I really think it boils down to fear. There are certain companies out there that are making it mandatory. Hey, you need to have this vaccine in order to enter this establishment. Whether that be you're an employee or you're a customer, you need to be vaccinated. And for some people, it's going to be the fear of not being able to go grocery shopping, the fear of not being able to provide for their family, the fear of them not being able to pay their bills because they're going to lose their job. And there you go. But at the end of the day, it needs to be a decision that people are comfortable with, because it's going to be really easy for people to say, well, you said I couldn't come in. That's why I got it. I wouldn't have got this vaccine if you'd have just let me come in. So there are going to be a lot of people out there looking to pass the buck. But again, there's two groups of people I would love to sit down and have a discussion with, but I know part of me doesn't, because I feel like I'm going to get really frustrated. You got the group that is like, I'm not getting it, and they're trying to make it entertaining as to why they're not getting it. And they're like spewing this misinformation out there. And you got other people who are fearful, and there's other people taking advantage of that fear. And people just don't put certain things into their body just due to misinformation. The biggest cure for fear is education. And I think if people just educated themselves, it will go a long way. So I wanted to take the opportunity to do that. I have a few articles here that I wanted to, two, so a couple of articles here that I wanted to read and really wanted to get into. So the first thing I wanted to do is talk about this poll from WebMD. And it's a poll. It's titled, Poll Reveals Who's Most Vaccine Hesitant in America and Why. This is on WebMD. How I got here is I just Googled, hold on, let me go back and see. Give me a second. I Googled COVID vaccine poll, and it was like a little further down. It wasn't like the first or second option. Again, it's poll reveals who's most vaccine hesitant in America and why. This is by Cara Murez, or Cara Murez. The Spanish in me wants to say Murez, but it may not be a Hispanic name. But here, let's read this. Let's get started. This was written not too long ago, actually in April, not even 2 months ago, April 29th. U.S. resistance to getting a COVID-19 vaccine is slowly diminishing, a new online survey finds, but it still exists, and at especially rates in some blue-collar jobs. I guess she meant especially high rates. She put especially rates there. It goes on to say, for adults under the age of 65 who are hesitant, reluctance is mainly driven by concerns about safety, side effects, and distrust in the government, the poll found. It's also largely linked to people's line of work. The bottom line, vaccine hesitancy is emerging as a key barrier to ending the COVID-19 pandemic, said lead author Wendy King, associate professor of epidemiology in the University of Pittsburgh, Graduate School of Public Health. Identifying occupations with a high rate of vaccine hesitancy and understanding the reasons for it might help public workers address concerns, she said. Our study indicates that messaging about COVID-19 vaccine, safety, and addressing trust are paramount, King said in a university news release. King and researchers from the Delphi group at nearby Carnegie Mellon University analyzed results from its ongoing COVID-19 survey in collaboration with the Facebook Data for Good group. About 1.2 million U.S. residents in Facebook's active user database complete the survey each month. In January, the survey added a question about willingness to receive the vaccine. This study was limited to working-age adults because workplace outbreaks and the spread of infection from workers to customers are public health threats. Many working-age adults also are more hesitant about getting a shot than older Americans. While resistance persists, there was some encouraging news. Vaccine hesitancy fell from 27.5% in January to 22% in March, according to the survey. The March survey included 732,308 people. Median age was 35 to 44, meaning half were older, half were younger. About 45% were male, 77% had some college education, and 64% were white. Nearly 48% of those who reported vaccine hesitancy expressed concern about side effects. More than 1/3 didn't think they needed the shot, didn't trust the government, were waiting to see if the vaccine was safe, or didn't trust COVID-19 vaccines specifically. And 14.5% said they didn't like vaccines in general. Workers in some occupations were more reluctant than others to take the jab. Hesitancy ranged from 9.6% among the educators and people in life. What? Hesitancy ranged from 9.6 among educators and people in life. That doesn't make people in life. What are you talking about? Well, let me read the rest of the sentence. Hold on. I'm going to start over. Workers in some occupations were more reluctant than others to take the jab. Hesitancy ranged from 9.6% among educators and people in life, physical or social sciences, to a high of 46% among workers in construction, oil and gas extraction, and mining. Okay, that makes sense. Oh, life, physical, or social sciences. Got it. Life science, physical science. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. The article goes on to read, hesitancy was nearly as high among workers in installation, maintenance, repair, farming, fishing, or forestry. In healthcare fields, pharmacists were the least hesitant at 8.5%. Well, that's no surprise there. The highest hesitancy, 20.5%, was among medical assistants, emergency medical technicians, and home health nursing, psychiatric, or personal care aides. The survey has grown to collect data on symptoms, illness, treatment, testing, behaviors like masking and distancing, and mental health, said senior author Robin Mijia from Carnegie Mellon's Dietrich College of Humanities and Social Sciences. And it's continuing to evolve as new policy questions arise. The survey results were posted April 24th on the preprint server medRxiv, I guess medRx4, and have not been peer reviewed. So it seems like, there are a lot of people who have different hesitancies, and I like this article because it breaks it down. It's not just like, I don't want to get it. There's some people who mistrust the government, which I get, especially if you're older, and more in particular, especially if you're older and black. There's some people who just don't think they need it, which is purely ignorant. I'm sorry, it is. You clearly don't know how science works. And there's some people who have other reasons. And I would love to talk to somebody who doesn't want to get vaccines just out of a discussion. But again, like I said earlier, maybe I don't. Okay, so there's one more article. It basically talks about, hopefully this will educate some people. It basically is an infographic about the COVID-19 vaccines, and it sheds a little bit of light on them. So I'm going to take a quick break, and I'm going to be right back with this other article. Okay, y'all, I'm back. So this article is on hopkinsmedicine.org. It's a health infographic. I love infographics. And this is titled COVID-19 Vaccines Infographic. Let's see what I Googled to. Actually, I don't remember what. I think I just Googled COVID-19 infographic. An article goes on to read, several vaccines have been developed safely and quickly to help protect you from COVID-19. Here's what you need to know. COVID-19 vaccines, what you need to know. How do the vaccines work? There are three main types of COVID-19 vaccines: messenger RNA or mRNA, protein, subunit, and vector. All three vaccine types either deliver or cause our bodies to make harmless proteins only found on the surface of the COVID-19 virus. After we are vaccinated, our immune system recognizes these proteins as foreign, and it attacks and blocks the virus if we get exposed to it. three main types of vaccines. mRNA is a molecule that tells our bodies to make proteins. mRNA, or mRNA, I guess you could pronounce it as, from the COVID-19 virus tells our cells to make harmless proteins just like those in the virus. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines work this way. Protein subunit vaccines, such as the Novavax vaccine, contain harmless pieces of proteins unique to the COVID-19 virus. Vector vaccines, like the AstraZeneca vaccine, use another virus that has been made safe. Material from the COVID-19 virus has been inserted inside of it. The material tells our cells to make harmless proteins unique to the COVID-19 virus. What to expect when you get vaccinated? The Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca vaccines are given as 2 shots in the upper arm muscle 3 or 4 weeks apart. Typically, it takes about 2 weeks after the second shot for sufficient immunity to kick in. Even after the vaccination, you might be able to pick up the virus, carry it, and give it to others, so infection prevention measures are still very important. The number of times vaccines made by other companies are given and the way they are given vary. Are the vaccines safe? Now, this is the biggest question a lot of people are asking. Although both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are developed in a faster than usual process, they were extensively tested for both safety and efficacy. Both vaccines have met Food and Drug Administration (FDA) safety standards and will be carefully monitored to detect any problems or side effects. Do the vaccines work? Based on clinical trials, the first 2 vaccines were shown to be extremely effective at preventing COVID-19. The Pfizer was at 95% and Moderna was at 94.1%. The trials so far show the vaccines are equally effective across age, gender, race, and ethnicity subgroups. The clinical trials were conducted with a diverse group of participants, including people of Asian, Black, Hispanic, Latinx, and Native American descent. Important vaccine facts. The truth: you will not get COVID-19 from the vaccine. Period. That's not going to happen. The truth: the vaccine will not change or damage your genetic information. It's not going to make you a mutant. The truth: even if you are vaccinated, you should still wear your mask, frequently wash your hands, and maintain physical distance to help keep everyone safe. So this was really easy to, like, a kid could read this and understand it. It was super dope. It was super easy. And it had a lot of pictures. Tim likes pictures. So this was pretty good to read. It was very educational, and I encourage everybody to go out there and get educated. If you're making a well-informed decision, you know what? The reason I put this type of gas into my car is because of X, Y, Z. Trust me, that sounds much better than the reason I put this gas into my car is because I've been told to do that. Or the reason I don't put this gas into my car is because I'm afraid to. You never want to make a decision out of fear unless it involves your survival. And I know a lot of people think that, hey, this is the decision that involves my survival. But think about so many other things that you're getting impacted. The biggest side effect of getting a vaccine is you may get some flu-like symptoms. You may get a headache. And I'm not an expert. Go and do your own research. But the biggest side effect of the vaccine is most occasionally you can overcome it. The biggest side effect to not getting the vaccine potentially is death. And I really hate to say this, but sometimes it might take for somebody to experience something really sad and unfortunate to realize how real something is. And that's not me wishing harm or ill will on anybody. So please do not misinterpret my words. But I've said this. I'm sure I've said this on the show before. I've said this to a lot of my friends in person. You got the type of people who all you got to do is tell them, hey, if you don't pay your light bill, your lights will get cut off. They panic and go, I am never missing a light bill payment, period. And then you have people who hear that and go, I'll be fine. They're not going to cut off my lights. and the lights get cut off, and they go, "Holy crap, I need to pay my light bill." I remember being in an Uber ride not too long ago, and the Uber driver had COVID like a while ago. And he said he didn't really take it seriously. He didn't really want to wear his mask. He got it. He got a little sick, but then he got over it. But then both his mother and father got it. His father passed away from it, and his mother got very, very sick, but she did not pass away from it. She's fine. And that's what really woke him up like, whoa, this is real. And I really hate to say that sometimes people need to go through that in order to understand how serious something is. But I really, really hate the fact that that's true. There is somebody that I know that I communicate with on a daily basis who doesn't want to get it and has had it. This person has had it twice. And she doesn't want to get the vaccine. And unfortunately, when people recover, no problem, it only hurts the situation because then it goes, oh, I got it and I survived, I'm okay. And I know a friend of a friend of a friend. Well, it's actually a family member of a friend of a friend. Got it, overcame it, and then got it again. And all I'm saying is this, y'all. You have a right to do whatever you want regarding your body. Just please make sure it's an educated decision. Don't make a decision out of ignorance. Don't make a decision out of fear. Because it doesn't help you. It doesn't help the people around you. And it doesn't help anybody. That's all I got. That's my PSA for today. I really appreciate the positive feedback that I've gotten from the last episode. Y'all really like that one. Thank you so much. It was one of my favorite episodes. And if y'all want another societal norm episode trying to re-examine that, or if you want to come and hang out with me on Instagram Live and maybe we talk it out, let me know. Until the meantime, everybody, enjoy your week. Enjoy your month. Eat that frog. And as always, I'll keep talking if you'll listen.